beautiful home decor on the Anthropologie website and you start naturally envisioning it in your home. Then you look at the price tag, you see it's way too expensive and you click away from the site. Does that happen to you or is that just me? So today I thought it would be really cool to do some Anthropologie inspired DIY so that you and me both can have some cool girl style on a budget. So let's get started. So for the first project up, I saw this stunning blanket ladder that is everything you could ever want. It's dual tone, it's neutral, and it's finished perfectly. But here's the thing. Woodworking actually scares the crap out of me. Saws scare me, drills scare me, and half the time I can't find my sandpaper and I end up using a nail file. But since the original ladder cost $100, I just decided I needed to figure out how to make it. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Off I went to Home Depot and I picked up 2 pieces of 1x2 inch wood, which I actually got cut in store to be 72 inches long. I also picked up 2 dowels, which were 3/4 of an inch thick. So here's a better look at the dowels. They're looking perfect, and I'm just laying them out and measuring out 15.5 inches, and I need to cut 5 sections total. I did actually clamp the dowels in between 2 pieces of wood this time before I started sawing because I wanted to make sure that the cuts were super straight, and also it made cutting the dowels a little bit easier. After all the 5 dowels were cut to size, I just went ahead and sanded them to make them nice and smooth, and then I took the 1x2 inch pieces and I sanded those as well. Next up, I needed to mark off where the dowels would go, and the math was perfect for them to be spaced out exactly 1 foot apart. So I went ahead and I marked off 1 foot, then 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet, and 5 feet on both pieces of wood. Now for the most seamless look that will be exactly like the inspo photo, the horizontal dowels need to actually fit inside of the 2 side pieces of wood. So for that, you're gonna need this Forstner drill bit, and it basically cuts a perfect circle and costs under $10 to buy. I've never used this before, but I am excited to give it a try. And just to be safe, I did do a test on a scrap piece of wood, and as you can see here, the hole that it made fits the dowel perfectly. So I lined up the 2 side pieces right next to each other, and then I took my drill with my new fancy drill bit and went through those pieces of wood about halfway down. And I repeated that until all 10 holes were complete. Once all the holes were cut, I grabbed my Gorilla wood glue and I added it around the sides of the hole, and then I put in the dowel. I just repeated that until all the dowels were attached on one side, and I actually just waited for it to dry for about 30 minutes before adding the glue into each hole on the other side piece and attaching that on to make the whole ladder. Okay, so now it's time to make the color block, and for this I grabbed some painter's tape and added it around each side a little higher than halfway up. I then grabbed this wood stain by Varathane in the color Ebony, but honestly you can just use black craft paint and do the exact same technique and it should work just as well. So to apply the wood stain, I'm just grabbing a little sponge brush, adding a little bit onto the brush, and then applying it right onto the ladder. And you really don't need very much stain on your brush at one time. A little bit goes a long way, especially with this black color. So I've applied the black stain, as you can see here, and it's looking really good, but when I took another look at the Anthropologie inspo photo, it looks like the black stain is not super opaque, whereas this is looking pretty opaque. I like how it looks, but I just want to match the original photo as best as I can. So I'm going to take a rag and remove the excess stain and hopefully lighten it up a little bit. So as you can see here, I'm wiping away the stain and creating the slightest amount of transparency here. And then once the stain dried, I removed the painter's tape, and you guys, to my dismay, the stain actually seeped in the wood grain and the line was not perfect. So I decided to just use a Sharpie and fix up the line, and then to make it match in terms of transparency, I wiped away the Sharpie pretty much right away, and that worked great. Now for the top of the ladder, I'm using this Varathane wood stain in the color Early American, and I'm adding it and wiping it away pretty much immediately because I didn't want the color to be too dark, and in the end it was the perfect shade. And that's it, you guys, the ladder is done.
this ladder look professional and store-bought is basically what I wanted to show you how to do, and that involved for me using a brand new tool that I've never used before and learning something new, which is fun. This is actually the perfect time to say thank you so much to Skillshare for partnering with me on this video. None of you actually know this about me, but I learned Photoshop and web design when I was in grade 7, and I learned it all by myself. Creative learning is exactly what I love to do. I love Skillshare so much because they have literally thousands of unique classes for creative people, like animation, photography, crafts, illustration, like so many different topics, and they also have businessy type topics as well, like entrepreneurship or productivity. I was actually just watching this class this morning on film production that was called Directing 101, Making a 5-Shot Film by Julian Kepler, and it's just so inspiring to see how much more I can actually learn about making better content for you guys. A lot of the YouTube channels out there that I'm sure you love, like DIY Danny, The Sorry Girls, Best Dressed, they actually come from film backgrounds, and I totally don't. I come from business, so that's why I love Skillshare as kind of an outlet for me to continue to learn in that creative way. So here's the deal. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description box will get a 2-month free trial of Skillshare's premium membership so that you can explore your creativity as well. It's a no-lose situation. And then after the 2 months, you can either cancel your membership or continue on exploring for under $10 a month, which is honestly a steal. And now some real talk, you guys. I really want this sponsorship to be a success so that Skillshare will partner with me again in the future. So it would mean so much to me if you do go ahead and take advantage of the 2-month free trial. Literally, I'll love you forever. Thank you so much. Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and on to the next DIY. So when I was scrolling through the Anthropologie website, I saw this stunning marble tray. So cute. Can't you just picture some earrings on it, a necklace, some other jewelry? For it to look realistic, it needs to be the right type of material, which might be hard to find, the right size, the right type of handles, and it needs to come together in a way that's gonna stand the test of time. I think I have figured out a way to do this that's also not too hard if you want one. So without further ado, let's get started.
So here I am literally running around Lowe's trying to find the perfect type of tile to use for this project, and what I was really looking for was a 6 by 12 inch floor tile. After a little bit of searching, I found the right one. So this is a close-up of it, and it's basically like marble stone. I'll link this tile as well as a couple others down below for you in case you want to try out this project for yourself. The tile actually has an ink marking on it on the side, so I just took some nail polish remover and wiped that away, as well as just cleaned up the overall tile. Next up, I'm using these simple gold cabinet handles. To attach them, I'm using E6000 glue, and I'm just adding a little bit around the base and placing one down on either side of the tile. To make this tray look really fancy, I felt like it needed a little bit more shine, whereas the tile as is a little bit more stone-like with not a lot of shine. So I grabbed some epoxy resin off of Amazon, which is basically a really thick varnish, equivalent to something like 50 layers of varnish. And I just followed the instructions, which is 2 parts resin and 1 part hardener. You stir it all around until it's perfectly mixed, and then you can just pour it on. I used my stir stick, aka a fork, to just move the resin around so that the whole tray, including the sides, were covered. And resin is actually self-leveling, which means that once you get it all over the tray, it will level on its own and won't be bumpy. And I actually made a small mistake here, so I wanted to add these super fine embossing sparkles to the tray before adding the resin, but I totally forgot, so after I added the resin, I just kind of sprinkled them on top. And just like that, the tray is ready to go.
So how much do you love how that tray turned out? I just think it's so easy, and also you can use it in a lot of different ways. You can put your jewelry on it and use it the way that I was intending. You could have it in your bathroom and have some soaps on it, have it as kind of a tray that would tie to your whole vanity area. There's lots of different options for it. So yeah, I think that one was a success. Anthropologie sells this little vanity mirror that I love so much because it's the perfect shape, it's the perfect style, it's minimal. I love the arch base and I also love the rounded mirror on top. I just think it's so cute. The base is actually made out of marble, but it looks so much like cement in the photo. So I think I'm gonna go that route. Now the only thing is I have never worked with cement before, ever. I'm a little bit nervous to do it, but we're gonna get going with it. I hope that it works out. Let's get started.
I got this round mirror from the thrift store that's just perfect for this project, and then to create the base, I found this large soap container from the dollar store that seemed to be the perfect arched shape at the top. So I emptied out the soap in a Ziploc bag so I could use it later, and then I rinsed out the container. I marked off where I wanted the bottom of the base to end, as well as how far down I wanted the mirror to sit. And then I just grabbed a rubber band and attached it around those two spots so I could draw around it and have it be a pretty level line. Using that same rubber band, I created a guide for the center top cutout on the left that I'll need to do, and I just traced down that, and then I repeated that on the right side as well. I quickly checked to see if that cutout area was big enough to fit the mirror, which it wasn't, so I went back in and widened that area, tested it once again, and we're good to go. Next up, I grabbed my X-Acto knife and started cutting out that top shape, and just so you know, you have to apply quite a bit of pressure, a lot more pressure than I thought, but once you get comfortable with that, it cuts so easily. Next, I grabbed a piece of cardboard and I traced the inner side of the mold that we just created and I cut that out. I repeated that so that we'd have two sides, and I also created a cutout for that horizontal section. And then finally, to make this a little bit more waterproof, I covered the cardboard with duct tape. And now on to attaching all these pieces together. So I put the good duct taped sides towards the inside of the mold, and I used hot glue to hold it in place and really attach it back to the plastic mold. For the two inside seams, I held the mold at an angle and just kind of dripped the hot glue the whole way down, and that worked perfectly. I went ahead and cut off the bottom of the mold, and that's how we're going to actually pour the concrete in. And then, thinking that this would make the mold easier to remove later, I also cut a slit in the side of the mold and hot glued it closed again, thinking I could just like peel off the hot glue, but this actually was super pointless, so you don't need to do that.
So just popping on here to say that I show these little weird sneak peeks over on my Instagram, and if you're not following me over there, I think you're missing out just a little bit. Go on and check it out. It's at DIY Dalia with an underscore at the end, and that would mean a lot to me as well. Now back to the tutorial.
So now onto the cement. I'm using this white stepping stone cement kit from Michael's, but you can just get super cheap cement from Home Depot as well. I'm mixing it up and adding water little by little until I'm getting that right consistency. I also added in a little bit of acrylic paint to add a bit of color to the cement. Next, I grabbed this large vase, and it's going to actually hold the mold while it's drying, and then I just started pouring in the cement. Once it's filled until the line that I marked off, I'm just tapping the mold for about a minute to get rid of any air bubbles. And after that, I just put the mold back into the vase and let it dry for about 24 hours. And while that's drying, I moved on to the mirror. So currently it's white and the inspo mirror is gold. So I placed a piece of paper in the center and I just roughly taped off the edges of the mirror using painter's tape. Then I grabbed my X-Acto knife and I'm cutting out the excess tape, and it just peeled right away. And just so you know, this is a major hack for situations where the mirror is glued to the front of the frame. I took the mirror outside and spray painted it with the Design Master Gold spray paint, which is my favorite, in the color Brilliant Gold, and I gave it a good 2 coats. I took the mirror back inside and I went ahead and removed the painter's tape, and voila, it's the perfect paint job. And now we can move back to the cement base. So it has been 24 hours and it's nice and solid. So to remove the mold, you basically just need to cut down the whole side several times, and when you're going over the sections where there's cement, you just need to kind of angle the X-Acto knife so it's a little bit more horizontal. To my surprise, the cement didn't stick at all to the mold and it was super easy to pull off. Now there were a few air bubbles left behind, so I just mixed up the tiniest amount of cement and I filled those in, and then I went ahead and sanded all the little areas that needed to be smoothed out.
I'm so pumped that just worked out. I'm so excited. I actually was a little bit worried, but yeah, it turned out. So on with making this into a beautiful little mirror.
I cleaned down the face of the mirror and wiped it dry, and then I went ahead and used hot glue along the inside of the cement base. I slid the mirror in place, and you guys, what a good Anthropologie dupe made out of just a couple items.
Cement is clearly not all that hard to work with. So if you've worked with it before and you have a project that you think won't be too hard for me to tackle next, let me know what that is down below, because I have a whole thing of cement that, you know, is just waiting to be used in DIY projects. Okay, so moment of truth, let me know what your favorite project was down below, because I just want to know if your taste is the same as mine or a little bit different. And as usual, I'm going to share what my ranking is with you. So my favorite is probably the ladder, because it's just so cute and it's gonna go so perfectly in my living room when I do get around to decorating that. And then after the ladder is a tray, because it's just so multi-purpose. It's simple, it was easy to do, you can do it too, so I just gotta rank that second. And then the third is the vanity mirror. Now that's a little tricky because the vanity mirror I think turned out pretty much bang on, but just in terms of having to rate these items, it's gonna come in third, but I honestly love it so much. I love all three of them, and I hope that you do too. Don't forget to sign up for the 2-month free membership to Skillshare by clicking the link in the description box. And also, I just wanna take a second to say thank you for watching this far, and I honestly love you so much for helping to support my channel. It actually means everything to me, so thank you from the bottom of my heart. See you next time, guys. Bye.